This is getting old. Here we are again. 2 shops have looked at this vehicle and worked on it, and the customer spent money. It's still not fixed. Let's get started. Actually, it's not getting old. It actually pays really well. I'm always happy to have Daniel-san or whoever, me or whoever's working, to look into it and actually get to the bottom of the problem that other shops have said, yeah, we found the problem, it's fixed, and the customer still has the same problems. And they're actually asking the question, I just spent a bunch of money and I'm in the same place that I was before I started. What in the world is going on here? This is happening a lot anymore. This is a 2013 Dodge Challenger with a 5.7 Hemi. It is the RT model, and it is in pretty good shape. We're going to talk about some of the things we checked today and the answer that we found. Actually, Daniel-san found the problem. So what's actually wrong with this vehicle? The issue at hand is that it has a constant misfire, and if you scan for codes, it says cylinder 4 misfire. Really, there's not much more data than that, just a cylinder 4 misfire. The first shop replaced an MDS solenoid, they replaced some other things and did some, I'm not sure all the details. The second shop actually looked at it, spent some diagnostic time on it, charged the customer and said, this is too deep for us to handle, we can't take this on, you're going to have to go somewhere else. So they paid for that shop, knowingly, for nothing. For them to say, we can't fix your car. Finally, it's arrived here. We're going to go over all the things that we found and what actually fixed the problem. But first, let's take a look around this vehicle. Here's the front of this Challenger. I do like the way that they look. This one has about 150,000 miles on it. You can see some paint is starting to peel on the bumper and starting to show its age, basically from the miles. These are really cool cars. They're really fast. They're very fun to drive. Unfortunately, this one has an issue. And down the side, you can see it's not dinged up or beat up really bad. It does state fuel on the fuel cap, just in case you forgot what goes there. And trust me, I have been in shops, worked in places where DEF fluid was put in with diesel fuel and antifreeze is put places it shouldn't be. So they're not too off the mark having to tell someone where to put the fuel. Here around the back, everything looks pretty good. You can still see some little paint chips and things going on, but nothing too serious. And down the side, it is equally as nice. It's a presentable car. It's a little dirty because I think they drive it every day and enjoy it, so it makes sense. Let's go ahead and hop under the hood. Here is our 5.7 Hemi. I'm not sure the exact horsepower figures. I know they were at 345, 350 range. This one, obviously, being a newer model, is probably more than that. But it is in fairly good shape. Daniel-san noted that when he checked it over, it didn't have any major leaks or anything serious going on. But let's go ahead and remove this upper engine cover and start talking about what it was that we found. So the MDS solenoids, there's an individual solenoid for each cylinder that has the MDS feature, and they're underneath the intake. You can't really see them. Let me see if I can shine a light. No, you really can't see in there very well, but they're underneath there. They replaced one of those. You can also see they put a new coil and a plug. And you can also see that this is what I call the parts cannon. No data was retrieved. No research was conducted. They just ordered parts and literally threw the parts at the problem. And it left out of their shop with the same problem it had when it came in. Nothing was solved. Some of those things that replaced could be the problem. With the age, 150,000 miles, some of these components really could have failed. It's very plausible. But the fact that it was replaced and the problem is still there says no investigation, no research, no data was collected. They just kind of said, I think it's a coil, let's try it. And here we have with the results. Let's get Daniel-san over here and talk about what he did. So when this thing came in, Daniel-san, what are some of the first checks that you did on this?
Well, I started with fuel, I did spark, and I checked compression just in case, just to get those out of the way.
So it had good fuel pressure, the injector was working well, spraying well, and then it had good spark, everything, the plug looked good.
Yep.
And you did a compression test, and it was?
150, 145.
150, 145? Mm-hmm. So If it were an issue with the lifters, if it were an issue with the valves, or something going on mechanical inside the engine, we would have seen that with the compression test. But it's got good fuel, good spark, all things going on as far as mechanical proved to be just fine. And then where did you go from there?
After that, I decided to scan the car just to see the fault and look at the parameters.
So what did you find with the parameters? What did you find there?
So in the parameters, I looked at like injector pulses, timing, stuff like that, just to kind of cover all the bases. So I noticed that for the solenoid kept activating when it didn't need to. So from there, I decided to move to the following step.
Okay, so basically, all the other data looked good, but you saw something that really stood out. It was like cylinder 4 solenoid is telling it to activate MDS, but it's not met the parameters to actually even do that yet.
Yes.
Even sitting at idle, it's activating MDS for number 4. And how did you find out what's going on there?
So for the following step, I just decided to go ahead and check continuity, see if maybe those are short to power or something like that. So I decided to go directly to the ECU because it's more accessible, easy to get to.
And what you found at ECU was just a connection issues? I remember you saying something like that.
Yeah, I unplugged it, looked at the connector, cleaned it up, checked some voltages here and there, and plugged it all back in just to give it a try, and came back to life.
We put some stabilint on the pins as well.
Yes.
It very likely was just a poor connection or very slight corrosion, and the stabilint cleared it up. And it came alive, huh?
Yeah, I was surprised for a second there. I'm like, oh, I fixed it.
Yeah. And that's what's really crazy about that is that wasn't too deep. That wasn't like, oh, it's so deep we can't work on it.
That was about an hour worth of diagnosis.
Yeah, that really wasn't that big of a deal. So anyways, thanks for describing all that, Danielson. If you haven't gone to his channel to check out some of the stuff he's got going on, he's got the Ferrari V12, he's got all kinds of stuff, the Audi videos, really great videos. You got like how many subscribers now?
14,500.
14,000 subs, that's great.
Yeah, that's been awesome.
Hopefully a few more can head your way. Guys, there'll be a link in the description. Head on over to Danielson's channel. You can see more really great content just like this. So I'll let you get back to work and I'll finish up here.
Of course, thank you.
Thanks. So if the MDS is being activated all the time, you would think that cylinder would have no compression, but until the engine actually starts, you're just cranking, it would actually just work like normal. But as soon as the engine starts and it sees the engine's running in the running state, the computer would then, at that point, engage solenoid number 4. It was getting some bad readings. We're not sure the exact details inside the ECM and all that stuff, but when we cleaned the corrosion on the pins, reconnected everything, got a good secure connection, everything came back to life. It now operated MDS when it's supposed to on all the MDS cylinders and stopped operating number 4 when it shouldn't. All it was a corrosion or a connection issue. It wasn't a coil, it wasn't a plug, it wasn't a solenoid, or whatever else that they did to this car. It was actually just right under this little cover, the ECM, and Danielson found it actually fairly quickly, like he said, in about an hour. So it is now fixed. You can take this car out. It goes into MDS like when it's supposed to, and when it's not supposed to, it doesn't. And it runs very strong, and all cylinders are firing. It wasn't that hard. And there's a question always asked, well, I've got X amount of dollars into this Car Wizard. Where did that money come in? I don't know. You need to call that shop and ask them, where does this money come in? Because it didn't fix anything. Maybe you can work out a refund with that shop, which very likely they're not going to do. But I really hate this for you guys. Some of the customers, you spend all this money for nothing. And finally come to Omega and get it solved. Danielson or me or somebody looks at it and poof, it's fixed. So that's enough engine talk. Let's head on to the interior and let Mrs. Wizard, who is now employed by Omega and no longer by a school district, show you guys around the interior.
Okay, ladies and gents, read it there. 150,987 miles. Wizard, close that door. Whew, that was annoying. So yes, ladies and gents, I am back, and yes, I am an employee. Well, I don't know if I'm an employee like he said. I'm the vice president of Omega Auto Clinic and the secretary and treasurer, so I might need to remind him I have more voting rights than he does. Nonetheless, he is the president of the company, obviously. And you can see here we have a nice gauge cluster. Nice kind of a classic design in there. It's looking good. Move up. The dash is in really good shape. There's no cracks, no real blemishes or anything. It looks really nice in here. Even though that paint on the exterior is starting to show some of that age, it's not showing in here. Have some kind of, I don't know, fiber-ish kind of design back there behind the radio and our HVAC controls, but again, they're pretty easy to use. So we move down. Yes, it is an automatic, so it's not quite as fun as some cars would be to drive, but it is in good shape. It does what it needs to. Have some fun Dodge little coasters down there as well. In our box there, you can see there's the old coil that they actually took out and replaced for no good reason. So, I guess they could put that back in and retest it, I guess, but that would take more time and it's not worth it. As we look at our door card, it's in really good shape. Everything in here is gray, and a little bit darker gray and a little bit lighter gray and gray. So we have a lot of gray in here. And as we move to our back seat, you'll see that, oh yes, it's more dark gray. And it's kind of hard to see because it's so dark in here because the louvers in the back window and the very small side windows. But you can see these things don't look like they've been sat in at all, really. Nothing is going on. Maybe a little dust. There is a little piece of dust right there on that center section, but it's in really, really good shape in here. So we move to that headliner. No sagging, no Cheeto fingers. It's all looking fabulous. As we end up at our steering wheel, as always, we got a lot of little buttons here and controls. And look, Jeremy Clarkson would be happy. We've got flappy paddles. So that does make it a little bit more fun. Even though it is an automatic, it gives us some fun that we can play with those gears as well. So simple controls there on our steering wheel. Steering wheel's in good shape, not peeling, doesn't like it has any sunburns or anything like that. And of course, the Dodge symbol in the center is looking really good. So enough of this interior talk. Let's get this up in the air.
Okay, we'll do a quick little run through here. Our main problem and concern was the engine misfiring, but we'll definitely do a quick look over, make sure everything looks good underneath. First thing I'm noticing is our belly pan, although it has a few scrapes on it, it's not wet. There's no antifreeze or anything coming out the bottom there. We'll head on over to this wheel. Strut is dry, sway bar link is good. Brakes are about half gone, but they're still okay. Steering rack is nice and dry, nothing going on there. Brakes are half gone, strut is dry, sway bar link is good. Nothing loose there. Steering rack looks good. Look inside of there, the hoses, the radiator, everything looks nice and dry. The oil pan is nice and dry, so that's really, really good. With this many miles, I definitely want to check for a rear main seal leak, but I don't see anything. There's no fluid there. Our transmission pan is leak-free, dry as a desert. Here's our dual exhaust, which look to be pretty much stock, at least up here in the front anyway. Take a look at our flex disc. Everything looks good in there. Yes, that is borrowed from Mercedes, so is the transmission. This is back in the era when it was Daimler, Chrysler, Mercedes was kind of merged with them. A lot of technology was shared. There's some water drops you can see here that are just condensation from the exhaust, but we can also see from here on back, the exhaust has been modified. You can see where the weld is, and this is basically, looks like straight pipes. That's
What? Straight pipes and no muffler Newton?
Well, I don't think these people come from Newton, but...
They do fit in nicely.
Yep. Flex disc looks good there. On our differential, we do see there's a little bit of a coating. Maybe there's a very slow seepage. But that's not something that's really warranting a major tear down. There's no drips. Danielson checked the fluid level, it's still full, so there's really nothing really needs to be done right there. CV boots look good here. Our brakes again are about half gone. Sway bar link up here is good. Nothing loose there, and our shock is dry. CV boots are good, brakes are half gone. Sway bar link is good. Shock is dry and nothing loose. So here we are at the back. Everything looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and check the tire date code. 35th week of 2021. These tires are still good. They actually got quite a bit of tread on them. All right, let's get this thing on the ground. Another victory at Omega. We're glad to get this taken care of for this customer. It's kind of odd to think, or kind of strange, how was it missed? You hook the scan tool up, it says misfire number 4, and I think that's as far as they went. They said, oh, well, it's got to be a coil. Well, it's got to be the solenoid. We don't do that here at Omega. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. I want to know that it is this or is that before we order any parts or even call the customer. That game of it's got to be this and that can get you in a rabbit hole and in trouble really, really fast. Thanks to Danielson for digging in and finding out what's going on with this car. Customer will be happy. They're actually coming to pick it up tomorrow. I'll be ready to rock. Full power again on all 8 cylinders, not just 7. Definitely glad we got the corrosion issue fixed on the ECM. It was not fully seated. I'm not sure what's going on there. I think some water got in there. I'm not sure exactly why it was the way it was. We use Stabilent 22 as it's kind of a connection enhancer. It really, really solves a lot of electrical issues. It's not just a cleaner. Once you put that on there and you get a good connection, it stays that way. Very clean, solid connection for a long time. Make sure to check out the description below. Danielson's link is there to his channel. If you're curious what kind of tools we use in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because we got many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.